fight just broke out on CNBC between Joe Kernen and one of Wall Street's most famous bubble callers in Jeremy Grantham. And it was about Bitcoin. Joe Kernen defended Bitcoin as sound money. Grantham basically said it's worth nothing, it does nothing, and eventually people are going to figure that out. And here's the crazy part. Although I do agree with Joe Kernen, the chart is actually on Jeremy Grantham's side. Bitcoin just broke through the classic 200-week moving average, which is the line that stops Bitcoin's bear markets from going from bad to worse. Analysts are warning about a prolonged bear market, and some are saying that Bitcoin could fall to as low as 40K. So today, we're going to break down the spiciest fight that we've seen on national television in a long time. And we're going to answer the question, what if Jeremy Grantham is right and Bitcoin continues to fall further? What do we do? This is Dante Coca Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. Yo, thanks for tuning into the channel. We do look at the numbers daily, and since we've been asking you all to start subscribing, subscribers have gone up a few thousand in the past few weeks. And we know that there's still a ton of you that watch this for the signal, the news, the fun, entertainment, the downright best Bitcoin media in the world, and still haven't subscribed yet. It doesn't get better than Simply Bitcoin. Subscribe if you already haven't. Let's get to it.
From a technical standpoint, Bitcoin's broken through its 200-week moving average of about 62,000, and that's usually historically been a marker for more prolonged bear phases. So we'll have to see if it can reverse it here or not.
That was Charles Schwab's Director of Equity Research, Adam Lynch, who broke down Bitcoin from a technical standpoint. And there are other technicals and other analysts that are backing him up. Bitcoin is broken between the 200-week moving average. In its history, Bitcoin has only spent 366 days below this point, which is 8% of the total time that it's been around. During the 2022 FTX collapse, we saw Bitcoin fall 34% beneath this line. If it were to match that, Bitcoin would fall to 41,000. Later in the episode, we dive more into this and what we actually do if Bitcoin continues to fall that way. But Bitcoin falling below this key critical price point brings out the bears, and it brings spicy conversations like these between Joe Kernen and Jeremy Grantham to national television. Check this out.
What represents a form of exchange, and the way that Bitcoin is structured,
fine.
There are people that would argue with you that it has a hard asset.
Other than the fact that some people have made a lot of money, like a chain letter, what does crypto do?
I don't understand the question. What
is the use of crypto? It pays no dividend. It doesn't represent an asset you can put your fingers on. There is nothing there. It is just an idea that it will go up in price. If you trust me, it will go up in price.
On an island, when shells were used to represent an hour of work, that you got 100 people, each one.
A good comparison. This is completely faith-based.
No, it represents proof of work. It represents proof of work. You're going to be totally wrong on Bitcoin, too? You're going to be wrong on everything you've covered.
Proof of unnecessary work shouldn't be worth a bucket of warm spit, and it will not be.
All right. It's only been 20 years so far, so someday you might be right about this.
Well, look, Warren Buffett's in the same camp.
No, I know, yes, so is Charlie Munger. But you want me to list 10 people that aren't in that camp that are...
I'm just suggesting that there's a lot of smart people who also have that view.
A lot of smart people who have a different view.
The point is, it hasn't outlived a general bull market. We've been in a bull market since March of 2009.
Right.
And when we get into a bear market, which Joe may think we never will be again, a serious bear market of down 50, 60, 70, do we think it will prosper in that environment?
Anybody that listened to you from 2010, you've done a grave disservice to them.
Before we finish the whole clip, let me answer one question that Jeremy Grantham asked. What does crypto actually do? For those of you that are new to Bitcoin, he said Bitcoin started in March of 2009. It actually started in January of 2009 with a special message built into its very first block. Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks. So Bitcoin wasn't just some useless thing that was created out of thin air. It was created because there is socialism for the rich and capitalism for everyone else. There was no accountability in the system in the 2008 timeframe. There is no accountability from our leaders in terms of the money that they create and print, which is causing havoc for the rest of us in the world. I mean, look at this chart. Joe Kernen is arguing that Bitcoin is sound money, and some people believe that US debt is sound money. You can bring a US Treasury to any meeting and people will accept it as collateral. But how? When Jeremy Grantham started his investment fund GMO in 1977, well, we had less than $1 trillion in debt. Today we have 39 trillion. The average home when Jeremy Grantham started his fund was $48,000. Today, it's over $420,000, and it costs a typical buyer $2,700 a month outside of insurance, property taxes, or any other maintenance that you have to do on a home just to afford it. That's up 82% from the pandemic and 72% from the 2007 bubble peak, which Jeremy Grantham likes to talk about in every single interview that he does. Based on average incomes in America, the normal buyer needs to put 40% of their income just to afford the mortgage on the house and nothing else. And right now, the stock market is 250% of GDP. For an asset manager like Jeremy Grantham, well, that means that your fund is stacking profits. And housing, which we mentioned before, is 146% of GDP. So how does the average person protect themselves from the inflation that they're experiencing in the everyday economy, not being able to participate in buying stocks or real estate cheaply because it's all been made unaffordable by people like yourself? And how do we have an accountable money system to combat the recklessness in spending that happens from the leaders that we don't even put into office through central banks? That's what crypto does. That's why people think Bitcoin is one of the most important inventions of our time. And that's why we never sell our Bitcoin. Before we get back to the spiciest part of the interview where they're going blow for blow with each other, let me show you how you can continue to stay sovereign even during bear markets. You work with a company like Ledn. They'll let you borrow from your Bitcoin up to 50% loan to value without ever selling your Bitcoin with no capital gains. You post Bitcoin as collateral and they give you fiat in less than 6 hours and half the rate of a credit card with no credit checks, and you can pay it off at any time. Never sell your Bitcoin. Use Ledn.
Anybody that listened to you from 2010 you've done a grave disservice to them. So if you feel fine with that's what you do for a living. That's fine. I don't have a problem. Andrew invited you on. I'm just pointing out the facts of the situation. If someday you might be right like a broken clock. That's what we'll say. This may be a huge bubble that we're in, but
Joe,
you've said it again and again and again and again and again and again and again.
Takes its view from gleaning the internet.
These are fine. This is your track record.
It isn't my track record. I can go through and give you quarterly letters, which I have written, bracing yourself for a melt-up, a market melt-up. 2018. That's already 8 years. Proves you don't know what you're talking about. And there are plenty of others like that.
I don't know where to go with that, Joe. You can take them on
I said my piece. You booked them. You've got your 1929 book out. Maybe it happens at some point. Maybe it doesn't. But, hopefully it doesn't. The market at this point, the S&P is pushing 8,000 eventually. And you've probably been bearish for 80% of that.
I've been saying that the market is overpriced by long-term standards.
We were at 2,300 at the bottom in April of 2021. Did you ever turn bullish?
I agree with Joe Kernen. Anyone who's listened to Jeremy Grantham over the past 20 years has gotten absolutely killed and destroyed in markets. I mean, just look at this chart. It shows the difference between GMO's forecast and the actual returns of all of the products that they said weren't going to outperform. Listen to this interview that Jeremy gave in 2019. When he called the Mag 7 the magnificent bubble, saying that it was the largest bubble of all time. And then he said it was going to continue to go down from here. The dude's always bearish.
I was really hoping there'd be a magnificent bubble ending to this, as there had been to the three great recent experiences, which were the housing bust, 2000 tech bust, and Japan. Mm-hmm. They were all classic. They ended with euphoria and a rapidly accelerating stock market. They're easy. You know they'll be followed by an abject decline. This one, I was hoping that would happen, doesn't look like it will, and therefore you're going to have a decline of a different nature. Mm-hmm. I wrote a paper 3 years ago called Not With a Bang But a Whimper, in which I suggested that the trend line PE that used to be 15 and has jumped for 20 years to 20 or 21, which is a lot higher, is probably not going to go back the way the value managers would love it to in a hurry. It may move back slowly and steadily, and I think it will move back perhaps 2/3 of the way, but it will take 20 years, not the usual 5, 6, or 7 years. And so this will be limping along, 3 steps down, 2 steps back. It's not a typical experience, but it looks increasingly likely to me.
And when we see that the Fed has pivoted and become, relatively speaking, more easy once again, and the ECB has done that to today. Does that make you think that US equities are attractive for the next couple of years again?
No, I'm afraid not. You can't get blood out of a stone. They're at these prices. Even the bears, the bulls, and everyone in between at GMO agree that over a long horizon, like 20 years, US market will be delivering 2 or 3% real. And for the last 100 years, we're used to it delivering perhaps 6% real. So this is a fairly painful, it's not the end of the world, but it's going to break a lot of hearts when we're right. 3% a year is going to seem terribly disappointing. Now, if you stay away from the US, which I absolutely would, in emerging markets, I suspect you can do even better than 6, maybe 7 or 8 if you tilt it towards value.
Can you imagine how many of his clients didn't participate in the Mag 7 run-up from 2019 till today? Because he said it was going to go down, because they're overvalued, because we've never seen valuations like this in the history of the world. Here's what I say against people who are always bearish and always calling for crashes. Always bet on the future. As Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger said, they always bet on America. And as we say on this show, we always bet on Bitcoin. It's a fixed supply asset in a digital age with unlimited and unfettered accountability with our government officials and how much money that they print. There's a fixed supply of 21 million, and it's the only true barometer and the only true money that is not manipulated in markets these days. And let me give you another piece of advice. Never bet against nepotism, the strongest force in human history, where people try to make the future for their own kids better than it was in the past. And if you believe in Bitcoin and you believe in that kind of future, well, then you want to schedule a meeting with the team at the Bitcoin Way. Members of their team will help you think about Bitcoin for your future generations. How do you secure it? How do you protect it? How do you send it privately? How do you manage it? How do they understand it? Schedule a free meeting with their team, and they'll help you think long-term and about the future with your Bitcoin. As we said before, it's always been a bad bet to bet against S&P 500. Jeremy Grantham was saying the S&P was going to be $2,000 for a long period of time with 2 to 3% returns in 2021. Now we're approaching nearly $8,000 in the S&P 500. And Joe Kernen is right. When are you ever going to turn bullish? Just because you're bullish in the long term with an investment vehicle doesn't mean that there's going to be volatility and that there's going to be drawdowns. Amazon has had 90% more drawdowns multiple times over the past several decades, yet it continues to be the best performing asset in the world that we've seen over the past 30 years. And so you never bet against the future. You never bet against something that it's different just because you don't understand it. You may not invest in it, but if you do invest in it, you want to take a long-term perspective. But Bitcoin looks like it's in for more pain, according to more analysts than one. What if we do actually see 40,000?
I said it could be as low as 40K. I said definitively that it would go below the 200-week moving average, which a lot of people earlier in the cycle said, no way. It was already hitting the bottom in the last November. It hit the bottom in February. And because neither of those hit the 200-week moving average that it always hits every 4-year cycle, I said not so fast. And I was right. We hit the 200-week moving average just a week ago when we went down to 59K. That's still 4 months ahead of where the kind of time-based capitulation has always happened in the past. And so I still think that's the most likely path forward. But there could be some macro, indicators that make it a shorter cycle. It's certainly possible, not quite 50-50, but maybe 30 or 40% that Standard Charter's right. They just said that the bottom was at 59K and we're going to be 100K by the end of the year. On the other hand, Galaxy, who had refused to give an estimate at the start of the year, said there's just too many variables, now has come back and said that it's going to be October and the bottom is going to be somewhere between like 40 and 46. So I agree with Galaxy that we could go that low, but I also agree with Standard Charter that there's a possibility, a reasonable one, that this could have been it. If I was have to pick a number right now today, I'd probably say 2/3 we have further to go, 1/3, which is higher than I've had in a while, that the bottom is in.
Well, we trade short-term volatility for long-term conviction and long-term optimism. I always bet on the future, and I do so in periods of 5, 10, and 15 years. People never lose money in Bitcoin over a short span of time. Every 4 or 5 year period when you look at Bitcoin, no one has ever lost money. So what is your time frame? Don't invest money into Bitcoin if you think that you're going to need this money in 4 or 5 years. You're investing in Bitcoin for the long term because of the long-term fixed supply dynamics, because of the lack of fiscal responsibility and the fiscal dominance that Ledn talks about, and that this train isn't stopping anytime soon with government debt going from 1 trillion to 39 trillion to 50 trillion and beyond. The Congressional Budget Office even says that we're going to break 60 trillion in the next decade. So what are you going to bet on? My bet is on Bitcoin and holding it for the long term. And that's why I don't continue to look at the price. I look at where Bitcoin is valued, what I think it's going to be at in the future, and I invest. I do so in more ways than one. You do it through just buying spot Bitcoin, and you do it through buying Bitcoin miners as well. They offset your tax obligations through the big beautiful bill. Talk to a tax accountant about that. But they also allow you to buy sats cheaper than you could if you were buying spot. And you also get the upside of the machine. Now is one of the greatest times you can invest into Bitcoin miners, and you can do so through SAS mining. Give them your money, they'll help you buy a Bitcoin miner, they'll set it up for you, and they'll send sats straight to your wallet while you sleep like a baby. I want to hear your comments about the famous spicy argument between Joe Kernen and Jeremy Grantham. Who's actually right? Is Bitcoin worthless? Is Bitcoin actually going to survive another bear market? What if Bitcoin does go down to 40,000? What are you going to do? This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.